You're listening to the Fantasy Bums Podcast, the show where we don't know what we're talking about, but act like we do. This episode is sponsored by Reaper Apparel Company and W Energy Supplements. Use code FANTASYBUMS to get 10% off your next purchase today.
Hello and welcome into episode 11 of the Fantasy Bums Podcast. We have an interesting show for you guys today. We had a couple questions. Shout out to Shanholtz for putting this up on our Instagram. If you see it above us, our Instagram is fantasy.bums. He had a big story out there to put questions in for future episodes. And I think we have 5 of them, and we're going to answer all 5 today. And then we might have a little bit of time for a mock draft. So stick around for that. Do you guys have any news or anything that broke that we didn't talk about or anything? Anything big?
Did you guys see about Leonard Fournette, about what happened with him?
Oh, his car?
Yeah, his car caught on
Yeah.
fire.
Oh, yeah, I saw it.
I don't know the full details, but I saw on his Instagram.
Hope everything's good with that.
I think he said everything was fine. Or he was fine. Car obviously is not.
I think I saw he walked around the car and posted the video of his melted front.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's any big football news. Training camp should be starting soon, so hopefully we get some more news, a little bit more for us degenerates that are paying attention to football in the summer. But Dalvin Cook and DeAndre Hopkins still in the market. Zeke's still there. Leonard Fournette's still there. Still need landing spots for those guys. Again, we talked about those guys previously on other episodes, so go check those out. If there's nothing else, I think we're going to get right into the questions. You guys have anything before we get started?
Nope, that's it.
Nope, just glad to be here.
Yep. All right. So our first question comes in from C. Howdershelt 15. Who is your 101 in fantasy football? So we're going to assume PPR here. I don't think it really changes, but for those of you who pay attention to that stuff, we're going to assume PPR. So Shanholtz, how about you give me yours? Who's your 101?
I have 2 that could interchange. I have Justin Jefferson. I think that's the unanimous 1-1 this year. Just an absolute stud. Catches everything thrown to him. Had 1,900 yards last year. So you don't see that not happening again to a certain extent. That's a pass-heavy offense in Minnesota. Love Kirk Cousins. Justin Jefferson's definitely the 1-1 favorite. But a sneaky 1-1 that I think is going to be really good that people are sleeping on this year is Austin Eckler. Mm-hmm. I don't understand why people are so down on him this year. I think all the cards line up perfectly. They got the Dallas coordinator who's going to blow up that offense and make it nuts. All the receiving wide receivers are coming back, so that's going to space it out for Austin Eckler. He gets at least 13-plus touchdowns, it feels like every single year, and he gets probably 100 targets every year. And he's on his last year of his contract, which has incentives for him to get more money the better he does. So I just think all the stars align for Austin Eckler. And if I'm at the 1-1, I might be taking Eckler over Jefferson. But if someone takes Jefferson, you can't really say nothing about that. So those are my 2 1-1 picks for sure.
Fair enough. Jefferson's a fan favorite. Eckler is I've seen him, he's always in the top 3. It's usually Jefferson, CMC, and Eckler in some variation. Tyler, heard we might have a little bit of a story behind yours, so how about you get into that?
Yeah, so I'm going to take the fans here. I'm going to take you guys on a quick little journey, a little blast from the past. So I have picked a total of 3 first overall picks in fantasy. Now, the first one is back in 2019 by a man of Antonio Brown. Now, the season before, in 2018, he played 15 games, had 104 receptions, 1,200 yards, 15 touchdowns. His fantasy finishes, he was standard 2 and PPR 5. So I drafted him with the 1-1. The next season, 2019, he played 1 game. And that was for the Patriots, where he had 4 catches, 56 yards, and 1 touchdown. His fantasy finish, standard was 147, PPR 150.
What a steal. What a steal.
Obviously, I didn't win that year. So I drafted 1-1 next year. In 2020, I took CMC. The season before, in 2019, he played all 16 games, 287 carries, 1,300 yards, 15 touchdowns. On the receiving end, he had 116 catches, 1,000 yards, 4 touchdowns. He finished standard and PPR 1. Now, after I drafted him, he played 3 games. He had 59 carries, 255 yards, and 5 touchdowns. On the receiving end, he had 17 catches for 149 yards and 1 touchdown. His fantasy finish, standard 51, PPR 53. So at this point, I jumped shift. I left this league. I joined a new league. I got stuck with the 1-1. So I'm like, okay, third time has to be the charm. So
No way
I
you can
took
mess
my
up 3
boy-
times in a row, right?
Yeah, yeah. So actually, I took a leap year. I took a leap year here. I took a break from fantasy because I was just playing horrible. So I come back in 2022, and I take my boy Jonathan Taylor. Now the season before, he played 17 games, had 332 carries, 1,800 yards, 18 touchdowns. He had 40 catches, 360 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He was standard and PPR 1. So I took him at 101. The next season, he played 11 games, had 192 carries, 861 yards, and 4 touchdowns. His finish, standard 36, PPR 33.
Well, it sounds like you're moving up every year. So,
Yeah,
I mean, you're trending in the right direction.
So I will not be drafting in the 1-1 ever again. And if I do, I'm immediately trading out of it because I am 0 for 3 on the first overall picks. So I do not have a 1-1 right now because I will not be drafting at 1-1.
Interesting take on the first
Yeah, that's a
overall
solid
pick
take.
in fantasy football for your league. Well, I guess that leaves me, and I'm going to kind of take a similar approach to Tyler, but I'm going to flip it. So who was somebody last year that was on pace to essentially break all the records that he set the year before, but he got hurt? That guy's Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp had the highest points per game by a wide receiver when he played last year. Offense was bad. It was him and Stafford. It's him and Stafford again. It's just a terrible team, but Cooper Kupp has produced with terrible teams. I mean, the 2 years ago, obviously, Super Bowl, good team, got to be good to win the Super Bowl. Last year, the Rams sucked. And that was, yes, they had injuries and holes in the offense and all that kind of stuff. But he still averaged over 20 points a game. And he was actually on pace to break his yardage record that he set the previous year for his career. So I'm going to rock with Cooper Kupp. And if I, for some reason, fade out of that for my own stupidity and I'll let somebody else take Cooper Kupp, CMC, I think, is my fallback option if I don't have the balls to take Cooper Kupp at the 101. So we have 2 receivers, 2 running backs, and then a no decision. Is that how we're going to chalk yours up, Tyler?
I'm going to
Trade
leave it
away.
at no comment.
Trade away.
The trade away.
Trade away.
101.
Yeah.
Trade
Trade
away
away
the
take
101. Okay.
Trade away the 101 at all costs.
Fair enough. All right. The second question is from Aaron Broussard. I apologize if I said that name incorrectly. You feel free to correct us in comment sections below. He asked, when do you target QBs in 6-point touchdown scoring? So I'm assuming that means rushing touchdowns and passing touchdowns are both worth 6 points, which is not how we play our leagues. We have passing touchdowns for 4, rushing touchdowns for 6. That gives the extra value of the guys, Josh Allen, Justin Fields, Lamar, Jalen Hurts, those kind of guys, that extra step in fantasy for us. I've never played in a 6-point touchdown league for quarterbacks, but I'd imagine that it's, just pushed up more. All these quarterbacks that are Mahomes that's throwing for 45, 50 touchdowns a year, I'm sure his ADP is up a little bit from, the end of the second, early third to middle second, early second. So if you can, it's again, same age-old story. If you can get one of these top 3 quarterbacks, I think it would be worth it in 6-point scoring. But at the end of the day, if you go back and listen to our quarterback rankings episode, I'm happy with anybody in the top 8. And those guys, the ADPs range from round 2 to round 5 or 6. So don't rush yourself to get one of these guys early, because you can always find a stud. You can always find a savior in the 5th, 6th round. A Justin Herbert, a Trevor Lawrence are probably great in a 6-point touchdown scoring league, in my opinion.
Yeah, I could
Shanholz?
definitely see.
Tyler? I'll just cut that out. Go ahead.
Yeah, no,
Sorry.
go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah, I could definitely see quarterbacks being moved up with the touchdown points being different. I could honestly see some of those guys going in the first round because, I mean, Mahomes and Allen, they could be drafted as high as the second. And now that they get them extra points from the passing touchdowns, I could see them going like mid to late first. I could even see
Mhm.
Burrow going in the first round.
Really? Burrow in
Yeah,
the first.
yeah, I
Well,
think
that's a
quarterbacks would
reach.
be a lot
It
higher
is.
valued
I
in that
agree.
type of league.
That's a reach. I think so. It just depends on who goes in the draft. If
Mhm.
if two quarterbacks go in the first round, then I'm sure people are going to follow up with that process.
Yeah, then for my opinion, I wouldn't be reaching too much more. It's only 2 more points per touchdown, and every single quarterback gets it. If you take a normal draft, just bump everyone up a round or two, and that's basically where I see him going. I don't see him going first round, and particularly in my taste for quarterbacks. If he throws 2 touchdowns, that's an extra 4 points. And the other guy throws 2 touchdowns. I mean, they cancel out in my mind. That's how my brain works. So I wouldn't be going too much higher for the quarterbacks in 6 point leagues, but I definitely would keep an eye out. Maybe get maybe a round or two higher than I normally would at max.
Yeah. So after a little bit of reflection on this question, I kind of seem like target and value are two different words, and I think that the value of quarterbacks is more important, and the pocket passers is more important. The Joe Burrows, the Justin Herberts, those kind of guys that are going to sit in the pocket and dissect defenses and throw for 40 touchdowns. But Allen, Hurts, Mahomes, Lamar if he stays healthy, Kyler if he comes back, those guys are still probably going to go around their ADP. But in my opinion, I'd reach a little bit for these guys. Um, so we actually have another. We had Aaron Broussard. Again, sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. He submitted 2 questions, and the second question he asked was for streaming defenses. Which ones do you like in the first couple weeks of the season? I'll let somebody else answer this one first.
Yeah, I can take it. So the defense that I'm really set on getting this year is the 49ers. I think their scheme is fantastic. Kyle Shanahan always has that defense going nuts. Fred Warner's just a missile across the field. Bosa, Arms. I mean, they have a bunch of guys on the team basically. And their schedule's not going to be crazy hard. They have the Seahawks, the Rams, and the Cardinals. I don't see any of them give to Seahawks maybe because they were a playoff team last year and their offense is good. But that's 6 games on their schedule right off the bat that you're not really too worried about. So I think the schedule lines up, the talent lines up, and the coaching lines up. So other names that I can think of, a sneaky defense is going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars this year. That division is just dog shit. It's awful. No one ever scares me in that division. The Titans run with Derrick Henry. Houston has a rookie quarterback, and the Colts have a rookie quarterback as well. The defense was ranked 6th last year. I don't think a lot of people realize how good Jacksonville's defense was last year, and I just think it's going to translate over with Doug Peterson at the helm. He always was a good coach at Philly. Might as well just translate it to Jacksonville. He bumped Trevor Lawrence up to a playoff-winning quarterback and a playoff-winning team. So I like them, and I like the Patriots as kind of the constant. Bill Belichick always has them running and gunning. X's and O's are insane in New England. Mac Jones hopefully gets a better offensive scheme going. They don't have a defensive coordinator or offense anymore, so that's going to be good. Those are the 3 defenses in particular that I like next year going forward.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you there on Shanholtz. I have the Patriots defense. I think that a lot of people forget how good this defense is just because the team itself didn't play to the typical Patriots standard. Because I mean, the last 4 years, they finished in 2019. They finished 1. 2020 they slumped a little bit and finished 17. Then 2021 they bounced back and finished 1, and then last year they also finished 1. So 3 out of 4 years they're finishing as the top defense. And I just think, like I said, I just think people forget about it because you think of teams like Philly, Dallas, Denver, San Francisco, Buffalo, the LA teams, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, the Jets. You think of all these really good defenses, and then I think people are going to forget about the Patriots.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean,
the Patriots.
because I mean, Bill Belichick has coached 2 of the best players on that side of the ball in Lawrence Taylor and Matthew Slater on defense and special teams. So they're always going to be in talk as being the top defense.
Yeah, Yeah, as long as Belichick's the coach, the Patriots will always have a great defense. I'm going to stick along the same coaching lines. I'm going to go with the Steelers here. I like the Steelers defense a lot, especially their first 4 weeks. They play the Niners to open up the season. Then they play the Browns at home. And I don't know if that's I don't know if that's a Monday or a Thursday night game because I don't know what September 18th is off the top of my head. But then they play another primetime game in Las Vegas against the Raiders, and then to close out their 4 game stretch, they play in Houston against their rookie quarterback. So I like the Steelers, and realistically, I'm fine with any AFC North defense. Those guys always seem to play tough and gritty whenever it comes down to interdivisional play, and even outside, those guys usually always have astounding defenses, and they're usually somebody you want to target for streaming almost every week. They're usually always on a team, which is why you'll never be able to find them on the waivers.
And another sneaky defense before we get off this that I think was dog crap last year, but is actually going to be pretty good is the Atlanta Falcons. They bossed up this offseason. They got Jeff Aduka. They got Jesse Bates. They got Edmonds, I believe. I mean, they got a bunch of players this year. And I think they're going to – and that division's just awful as well. I mean, any South Division teams are just not good. So they'll have an easy schedule, and they bossed up their players this year. They might be sneaky top 10, top 12 defense for sure.
I like
if you need a stream. Yeah, if you need a stream for a week.
I like it. We're getting deep into the playbook here.
Oh,
all right,
yeah.
so the next 2 questions are more personalized and opinionated. So Christensen.Jack asks, who's your guys' Super Bowl favorites? Now, for me, this question's easy. It's the team you're a fan of, right? I'm an Eagles fan. It's the Eagles. I mean, like, we were in there last year, right? So we're just going to come back and we're going to be in there again this year. So that's my answer. It's the Eagles, and that will always be my answer preseason.
Yeah, bang, bang, Bird Gang, baby.
Yes, sir.
I'm also an Eagles fan, so I wouldn't hate to see them back in it. But if I'm calling it now, I think the Chiefs repeat. I got to be honest. Every year, everyone's like, I think everyone just gets bored of voting in the Kansas City Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you just can't bet against them. And Mahomes him and Garoppolo are tied for the most Super Bowl rings. But I mean, I don't know who can stop that offense. I mean, the Eagles were one of the best teams in the Super Bowl, and Mahomes on one leg beat us. So, I mean, it's nuts.
Yeah, it's tough. Tyler?
So I'm going to give my candidates from both sides on AFC and NFC who I think is going to make it. So for the AFC, all roads go through either Kansas City, Buffalo, or Cincinnati. It's going to be the fight between those 3 teams. You're going to have to either beat 1, if not 2, maybe even all 3 of these teams to get to the Super Bowl. And I think the team that's going to do it is the Cincinnati Bengals. They've proved that they can beat both Allen and Mahomes in the playoffs. The first year with Burrow, they made it to when he fully played, they made it to the Super Bowl. Second year, AFC Championship. And without their 2-14 pick and first overall. And his record against Mahomes, he's 3-1 against Mahomes, 1-1 in the postseason in the AFC Championship is their only loss. And he's 2-0 in the regular season against Mahomes. We didn't get to see the first game between the Bengals and the Bills because of the tragedy of Damar Hamlin in that situation, but we did get to see them meet in the playoffs where the Bengals beat Allen again and making them 1-0 against Allen. So I think the Bengals have the best chance in the AFC to clear the board and make it to the Super Bowl. Now in the NFC, I believe the all roads go through Philly, San Francisco, and Minneapolis. I think those are going to be the 3 teams on the NFC that are going to be fighting for the top spot. Now I'm going to agree. I think Philly takes it. Philly's going to be back. And this would be a really, really interesting Super Bowl to watch because you have 2 quarterbacks who basically in their first full starting committing year made it to the Super Bowl. They both lost, and they're both fighting for their first rings for their individual quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that could be another crazy Super Bowl like last year, a high scoring, another 38-42 game or something like that. But I don't know who I'd have winning that one. I want both teams to win. I like both teams. I'm gonna side with Burrow on this one just because I love Joe Burr, and my roommate's a Bengals fan, and I hate to see him when the Bengals lose.
Yeah. Well, since everybody gave an NFC and an AFC, I guess I'll throw in my AFC candidate. I'm gonna go a little bit off the path here. I'm gonna say the Chargers. Justin Herbert bounces back in an incredible way this year. They host a playoff game and then unfortunately have to travel the gauntlet. I feel like Justin Herbert in his first playoff appearance is going to show out. I like him. He's a baller. I hope he bounces back. He has an electric arm, no pun intended, with the Chargers, but he's a stud. He gets overlooked when you talk about AFC quarterbacks, I think, a lot because of the Allen, Mahomes, and Burrow talk, but he could very well have himself a good year and be in that top 3 discussion easily. So I'm going to go with the Chargers for my AFC. Anybody got any dark horses you just want to throw the team name out there just to be the guy to say it?
I don't hate Duval County. I think Jacksonville is going to be very sneaky.
Okay.
T-Law's
I like
electric.
Jacksonville.
Dougie, I love Jack. I love everything about them this year. I think they're going to be just a sneaky team this year.
Yeah. Let's not
Plus,
forget what
Doug Peterson
happened.
already has a ring, so.
I was going to say, let's not forget what happened whenever Dougie P was in the last Super Bowl.
And they barely lost to the Chiefs in the playoffs too.
Yes.
And they came back 27 or 21 zip or 27 zip to the Chargers last year.
It was the biggest. It was the biggest playoff comeback, I believe.
Yeah. So T-Law's electric. Everything about Duval County is awesome, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're in the bowl next year.
So, I think the most important question should be saved for last. So I want your guys' opinion, huh?
I said I've been waiting for this all day.
Good. That's what I like to hear, because it's a hot button discussion. So fantasy football guy asks, is a hot dog a sandwich? Now, first, is there anybody that says yes to this?
I do.
I think I said yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I want your reasonings.
Okay. So I'm gonna break this down from a fundamental standpoint.
Shout out Coach Kent Murphy.
Oh, hell yeah.
So I first asked myself, what classifies as a sandwich? And I took to the interwebs and found this out. So my definition of a sandwich is 2 or more slices of bread having a filling in between on a vertical or horizontal plane. So vertical being the sandwich being stacked, or horizontal being it laying sideways, like a hot dog would be. So my answer is yes, it is a hot dog, or it is a sandwich.
Yeah, it is a hot dog. You're right.
It is a hot dog.
You would be correct there.
It is a sandwich, but it's a certain type of sandwich. I would classify a hot dog as a sub.
Okay. So then that raises the question, is a sub a sandwich? Because
Yes,
I don't think it is.
It fits into that definition of the horizontal plane.
I didn't even think of the sub sandwich debacle.
That pokes a hole in everybody's balloon, doesn't it?
Yeah. I compare it to the age-old shopping cart buggy discussion. All buggies are carts, but not all carts are buggies. Meaning all hot dogs are sandwiches, but not all sandwiches are hot dogs.
Huh. So I got a question for you about this whole theory. So you're saying a sandwich has 2 slices of bread, correct?
2 or more, yeah.
Okay. How would you classify a sub, the bread of a sub? You know, you go to Subway, you don't get 2 slices of sub bread. You get 1 roll.
But it's cut into slice.
But it's not cut in half.
But the bread's one connected at the bottom. It's one.
So
I see what Nick is leaning me towards his.
So
I definitely thought I was dead set on a sandwich for sure.
My answer is it's a sub, not a sandwich, and you can't change my mind.
Well, see, I thought I didn't even account the sub in my logical thinking earlier. I was thinking bread, items, bread was a sandwich. But now that the sub, it is connected to one piece. So I could definitely. Tyler must have got so many left.
Yeah. He'll catch you guys next episode. Don't worry.
Yeah, he left if you're listening on the audio, just because he's so disgruntled. But I'm leaning towards Nick's argument. I mean, he convinced me. He sold me. I'm a sub guy now. I think a hot dog's a sub. Yeah, you sold me. I gotta be honest.
Glad to hear. It's 2-1 in favor of sub. So, fantasy football guy. I hope that answers the question.